Hello, everyone. Welcome, and I'm happy to introduce to you Professor Naveen Vaidya, and he's a faculty here in the Department of Mathematics. He's been here since 2017, am I correct? And he received his PhD in applied mathematics from York University. His research involves using mathematical tools to study problems in biology. Recently, he has been actively involved in looking at COVID, and he's been modeling COVID transmission, not just in San Diego, but also in Nepal. And today he's going to present his work on COVID-19 from within-host infection to between-host transmission, and giving us a modeling perspective. Welcome, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Udua. Great introduction. Okay, thank you all for coming, and also many people are in Zoom. Yeah, thank you for being ready to listen to me. Okay, today I will be talking about, again, COVID-19 from within-host infection to between-host transmission and mathematical modeling perspectives. Then how can modeling help? So given this audience, interdisciplinary audience, I would like to focus less in details in math, methodology part, but mainly I just briefly tell you what kind of method we use and what kind of understanding we gain from about this COVID infection that's from within host to between host. What they are, I'm going to tell you. Okay. So if you are interested to know about more about the research, not only COVID, especially we have this disease modeling lab, and in that lab you can find all research we are actively doing, basically HIV and dengue, malaria, so both within host and between host aspects. Those are the research we are primarily working on right now. And of course, with we have our partners in the departments here, COVID and cystic fibrosis, those are the diseases we are actively working on. Okay. Okay, so let's go. Outline of my talk is very simple. That is, I will be talking, we do within host to between host, so COVID-19, that's SARS coronavirus 2 infectious virus. So that's the etiological agent. I'm going to tell you briefly what does COVID infection means. And then I move on to there are two things within host infection dynamics, case study in ferret is an animal. And between host transmission dynamics, again, we need some data, so case study in Nepal. Okay, okay, so let's begin. Like other diseases, when there is a COVID infection, it's the same infectious disease. What happens is it starts with the virus. Other diseases, it starts with the bacteria, pathogen, some kind of pathogens, and COVID. Let's discuss COVID. And first, it has to find the host. Usually, in our case, let's say human, and it has to, when it goes inside the host, it has to find the targets. And when it finds the target cells, then virus has to complete the life cycle. When it completes the life cycles, then it has a lot of virus in its body. And when it has enough virus, then it is ready to be infectious. So it takes some time for that. That's why usually we call this incubation period 4-5 days. You don't get infectious in 3-4 days or something like that.
Yeah. Can I share it? See if I can share my screen.
Sure. Okay. Sure. Nice. Not working now.
Yeah, I was having problems with the clicker using shares.
Now it goes. Now it goes.
Yeah.
Okay, so for those, it was not here, so I will be talking about these three things, a little bit briefly about the COVID infection, and I'll talk about within host and then between host. COVID has to find the host first, and it infects when it has enough virus, replicates enough virus after targeting the cells. Then when it has enough virus, then it becomes infectious. So when it becomes infectious, now we are not isolated in the society unless during the 1.5 years, we are almost isolated, but again, we are not isolated. So we are living with the community, so we spread others. And at the same time, if we spread in many places, like at the beginning, if you remember December 2019, this in Wuhan, there was COVID, new virus. They didn't even call COVID that. Oh, new virus came in China, in Wuhan. At that time, it was not pandemic and nothing. But later, it spreads and it spreads all over the world at the same time and with a very faster speed. Then we call it pandemic. Okay, so that's the definition. And clearly, if you are looking at the COVID starting from the virus to all the way to infecting and causing this destruction in the world, there are clearly two scales. This one is within the host. What happened when it goes, before it becomes this, how it completes cycles within the host, and when it becomes infectious, then how this between host cycle completes. So today I will be talking briefly, what can mathematics do to help actually manage in both within host and between host dynamics. Now, in within host, we have to find some host, we need data. We are going to do the ferret, this animal, and there's a reason. There are some human data, but human data are not, you don't have enough data sets for two reasons. Number one, you cannot infect human and track. So human has to go hospital or symptom or somehow, and then it should be ready, and then only you measure the virus. And even if you measure, you don't know when he was infected. But animal is good thing. Animal, you know when you infect, it started, and you know the right time frequency. So that's why animal study is always important. And we do the between host, we need the data. And especially, I'm also working a little bit in San Diego, but in this talk, I'll be talking about the between, particularly this Nepal, because Nepal has a unique data sets that helps us understand more. Okay. Okay, so let's do within host infection dynamics, case study in ferrets. And just 3 weeks ago, this paper came out. Everything will be based on this paper. So myself, and I should go to the next slides actually. So these collaborators, contributors, Angelica is sitting over there. So anything you find good, exciting stuff, that's by me. If anything wrong, that's by her. Okay? So she's sitting over there. And this Alan Parenson he's a guy. He's a great guy. Actually, he about in early 90s, he's the person who actually introduced the viral dynamics for HIV. And so I get opportunity to work with him. So we are working this, and I'm going to show this. Okay, so what we have within host is, this is actually the virus looks like. It's actually RNA virus, and these are some requirement: spike protein, membrane protein, these all things there. Anyway, this is RNA virus. Structure of the virus. Then what happens when virus infect this virus? It needs two receptor, ACE receptor, and also this TMPRSS. It has a transmembrane receptive, long name. I don't remember now. It's difficult to pronounce for me. But there is a protein, they need these two kinds of TMPRSS and ACE receptor for the virus to fuse, clip and the fuse. And when virus RNA goes here, and there are processes going on in endoplasmic reticulum Golgi, and they make a lot of viruses, and the virus comes out. And also these infected cells present the antigens. That means there's a foreign objects, they present it, and because of that, there are the different kinds of antibodies responses. For example, B cells that produce the antibodies, and also T cells that produce the cellular immunity. So these are the whole process going on inside the body. Okay, so this is how the life cycle completes. Now, this is how experiment is done in this paper. So this experiment is, there are two sources of viruses. One is actually they selected from the surface of Wuhan seafood market, means where it was originated, that Wuhan. They collected the surface virus, and also they collect virus directly from the human patient. And then after that, they prepare the virus stock using Vero E6 cells. Vero E6 cells, that's actually African green monkey kidney cells are there. Actually, they grow the virus. And with that stock virus, they first infuse into this, this PFU means platforming unit. That platforming unit tells you how many viruses are infectious, something like that, that measurement. and using this measurement, they infect this. So I found this in Google. They are already wearing ties, so maybe they are ready for getting infected in the lab. I don't know. So anyway, so they got infected, and then what they did is 2 of them got infected, and then after that, not infected. So they, intranasally they give the virus. Then after they test for either RNA, and this titration means you can think of like an infectious, like PFA, how many of them are infectious, and they test where they can find the virus, like in nasal turbinate, soft palate, tonsils, trachea, lung, heart, liver, spleen, kidney, pancreas, small intestine, and brain. They tried on all of them, and then what they found is actually, at least in ferrets, SARS-CoV-2 can replicate in upper respiratory tract only. So, but its replication in other organs is undetectable. So that's good and bad, 2 things for our purposes. Number 1 is because it replicates only in upper respiratory tract, so we can think of our infection site is only epithelial cells. So we just need to consider that. Okay. And bad thing is that's not perfectly happen in human. Human depends. Some are like this, and it's found that some are goes to lower side, and those who are infected in the lower sides actually end up in the hospital. So usually, so that's why these ferrets, because they are infected only upper respiratory tract, they are not sick. They are infected, but they are not sick. I cannot say they go to hospital, but they are not sick. Okay. So anyway, after they find only, okay, then this is the site they need to consider. Then after that, again, with the same stock virus, they infected other 3, each of them, from the surface as well as from the human patients, whatever virus they infected. And after that, they did test for viral RNA and titer. Again, we have a RNA copies, that means total viral load per milliliter, as well as this one is plaque forming unit. You can again think of as how many are infectious. So then that in the nozzle washes and rectal swab, and they measure this viral RNA copies, viral load, and infectious virus at day 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Unfortunately, data is always limited. We also have this 5 days, 5 and 5, 10 data points. That's it. So, but fortunately, we have 2 different kinds of data sets. So that's why it at least gives some more features. Okay. So we were going to use data sets, and now let's model it. Okay, so model is very simple. It's already well-done model. It's not a new model, but again, we want to use for the ferrets. This is T is the target cell, which is actually the epithelial cell. And in the epithelial cell also, actually in human, whatever amount of epithelial cell they have, all do not have that ACE and TMS step membrane, and remember that transmembrane and receptor they need. All cells do not have, only 1 to 20% cell has it. So that's going to be our target cell. Then this virus, when goes in, this virus, infectious virus actually, only infectious can infect, goes in, it infects, and with a certain rate, depending on the virus and rate, you produce infectious virus, infected cells, cell become infected, and this infected cell die. When infected cells die, they burst and they release the virus. And when they release a lot of virus, those viruses can infect. But when they release a lot of virus, all are not infectious. Many are error, just the RNAs are error. So then they produce the P is the per unit infected cell, how many they produce. Then among this alpha fraction are infectious, then remaining are non-infectious. And those we have taken modeling course, or we have done modeling. You can express this dynamics in a rate of change of each compartment. That's the rate of change is the differential equation. Okay, derivative. So you just they also clear from the body. That's the rate. And so we have a target cell. They decays with this rate, and again infected cells added and they die, and certain percentage become infectious and clear out, and remaining becomes non-infectious and clear out. And in this case, what our data in our model? Our data is we have VI, that infectious virus, plus we have some of them, VI plus VM. We also have the total measurement. Okay. Then we feed the data to the we feed the model to the data, And then what we find is this. So clearly, fitting is good here. These are viruses these are the ferrets who are infected from that surface virus and who are infected from the human virus directly from the human. And the first one is total viral load, and the second one is the infectious viral load. So viral titer and viral RNA. So fitting is good, reasonably okay, but there are already some uncertainties. We did a lot of sensitivity analysis and uncertainty analysis in that paper. So you can go on that one. So what's our understanding? So by fitting the model, we identify some of the parameters. And key first thing is, unfortunately, we don't have control over it. It's only three animals. But if you look at the difference between those two groups, if you do statistical tests, whether they are significantly different or not, actually they are not. That tells us that whether virus is coming from surface or it's coming from the actual human patient, they are equally infectious, at least in this case. So in that case, you can say that maybe virus infection transmission from the fomites is also equally likely in many cases. Okay, so that's one thing, but we cannot say for sure. But in this case, at least their parameters same. And other thing, we found some of the interesting results here. One is this one is initial viral load. Even though at the beginning, if you remember, 10 to the power 5 infectious virus is infused nostrally. So at that time, only about 5 virus established the infection. So remaining all did not get into the infection site, or that did not, they were not infectious like infectious they measure in the virus. So that's one thing. And what is known from here is, so only small virus infects, but still they need to give a large amount of virus. That means you actually need a lot of virus to set to get infectious. And other thing is, these are the infectious rate. And one thing here, this tells us that after getting infected, how long virus stay infectious before cell burst, cell die. So about 1/5. So that's about 5 hours. Virus stay 5 hours, and after 5 hours they die, infected cell. And this one is about 0.02%. So this one gives us the among the virus produced, how many are actually infectious? That's just about 0.02%. Very, very little virus is actually infectious virus. And next one, this is production, and also this virus lives about 4 hours. Reciprocal of this gives us roughly how much virus lives in the body and cleared by the body. So that is about 1/6 days. That is 4 hours.
So can you go over the number?
Yeah.
Is 0.0? Can you repeat that one?
This one 0 times 100. I did P is the alpha is the when virus burst come out. Among them, what percentage becomes the infectious and remaining becomes non-infectious. So only 10 to the power -7, which is 0.0, roughly 1.75 round to 2. So 0.02% is very, very small portion of the virus is infectious.
So wait, because that's the part that I wanted to put together with the number that you needed to cause the initial effect. So then if you have the 10 to the 5 that you have collected, it means that based on the model is predicting that from that 10 to the 5 that you started with, there were only 0.02% of that.
Yes.
It would be on the order of what, 100 then? And then you have only 100 of those would actually be effective, and among those, 5 were able to trigger the cascading cycle.
Exactly.
So that means that so I just wanted to get a feeling.
Yes,
of that.
your feeling is 100% correct, right? But calculation may not be exactly correct, because this, when you do calculation here, that's actually the stock virus, and they calculated 10 to the power 5 based on this kidney cell of monkey, and among them, that many infectious, maybe same level of infectious may not be there. But this one is actually, we fitted the data, and that is inside the body, inside the host. So this estimated inside. Still, your understanding is everything correct, but little bit of number might be different.
Those 10 to the 5, they were PFUs, they were actually infected.
Yes, they are actually, yes.
So then you need 10 to the 5 that are infected. when you're on that range, you would be able to infect with 5. And those 5 are going to help you get the whole
Exactly.
started.
Yeah.
Which means that if you were at 10 to the 40 PFUs, you would be very unlikely to start. If you're at 10 to the 6, it will be fine. But if I give you a load of 10 to the 5 out of the person infected, that would be very unlikely. You would be very far from causing infection because those you're saying that only about 0.02%. That means that you would need a ginormous load
Exactly.
from somebody that is
Yes.
expelling the virus to arrive on a drop and trigger your infection.
Exactly. That's exactly the conclusion we wrote in the discussion, I think.
What's the number? Or you're going to tell us that on
Oh, what's the number you mean?
Yeah. What's the number that you would need then to trigger an infection from person to person?
Oh, that's again, there is a extra uncertainty, like how long you stay with the person, how much you
No,
stay.
I know. So let me phrase it this other way. What would be the drop that I need to put in your mouth or in your nose to be more accurate, because then you will be producing that. That you need to have a probability to trigger this.
Yeah. So that's a very complicated question you asked, but that's an excellent question. Yes. If in ferrets, I would say this answer. In human, we haven't done it. So maybe less likely need more because human is almost what time we scale out, right? How many we scale out? How many times? So ferrets and human, we have a scale out to do the total number of cells. So yeah, that's right. But in ferrets, that's your answer. Yeah, I would say this one. They can establish roughly with that virus. Yeah. But yeah, again, I should acknowledge there are other studies people have done with a different dose, and it varies widely. And they had, yes, with this virus also possible, and some needed really 10 to the power 6, 10 to the power. There is a study done actually, 10 to the power 6, 10 to the power 5. Those kind of virus they infuse, but again, they don't know whether how many infections are there. That's the problem there. Okay. Anyway, that's some ideas. Then after that, what we wanted to do here is we did the very basic model. Now, but in the process, if you remember, life cycle process, there are so many things going on. So one thing always people ask is, when virus enters into the cell, can it right away produce? Because in our model, it produces right away. Maybe it stays sometimes, then only produce. That's called eclipse phase. So it needs some from virus entry to the production to complete that life cycle. How long does it take? So do we need that one? Now, what we did for that is same model, everything same. I just added eclipse phase. So before it's actually produced, it remains in the eclipse phase. Then after the only sometimes 1 by k, you can say the delay in the eclipse phase, then only it completes the process. Okay. So then if we feed this model, this is same idea, then we get the same fitting. So our conclusion is goodness of it is not significantly better than basic model. So at least for this data set, maybe that's because of the limited data set, we don't need this extra model. Basic model is good enough. But again, we assume that this extra model at least giving reasonably good job. At least we are not certain this is true, but at least we have idea infected cell produced virus after 3 hours of virus entry. Okay. So that is from cell entry to the virus production, it takes almost 3 hours. That's one idea. And again, we want to do some immunity also. Remember, when there is an infected cells, then infected cells produce the immune cells, and immune cells does job for us. So now, immune system is super complicated system. So it's very, very complicated and difficult. And for this ferrets, there is no immunity antibodies, and those things are measured only after 13 days. They found antibodies only after 13 days. So there is no antibody cellular immunity measured here. Then what we wanted to do here is we just wanted to start with like an innate immunity. That's when body sees some foreign object, regardless of whatever it is, right away it produces some immunity. So then what that innate, especially we are considering here interferon, that innate immunity. So what it does is, proportional to this cell, infected cell, there is interferon they produce, and this interferon actually are some kind of proteins, and they has a capacity. This interferon are such objects, they have a capacity, like if they are sitting near cell, in the cell they excite cell to produce the antiviral effect. So that means when cell has an antiviral effect exposed, then cell become like not susceptible, saved, like they protect the cell by change. That's called refractory stage. So what this interferon does is, this interferon actually, these cells, susceptible cells, they protect it, like they make it refractory cells, and they are not infected. So that's how they protect. Then we just wanted to try with this model, and of course this clear from the body, and this is the same model, same dynamics, and again we have a same fitting. So again, so goodness of fit is not significantly better than basic model. So whenever I say this word, that means there are uncertainties, what I'm going to say next, because we need more data. But cell becomes refractory, I think, at the rate sigma equals to this per day. And dynamics is not, again, we did using latent hypercube sampling techniques, we use the large sensitivity analysis. And what we found is dynamics is not sensitive to the immune responses. So it looks like naturally produced immune responses is not that, is not sensitive to fit this data. So that means maybe immunity produced actually is not that that's working. So anyway, but there are other studies also done by Washington University. They have actually also found that immune response is not effective in SARS. Okay. So after that, then we use our model to find other kinetic parameters. For example, basic here also same, whatever parameter we do. And what I calculated is basic reproduction number. In this case, basic reproduction number means when you put one infected cell in your entirely cells, then how many infected cells it produces in when it completes the life cycle. Or you can say also one virus, how many viruses it produces. That's reproductive number. And this is 2.05 here within host reproduction number. And we have a growth rate, decay rate, I mean virus goes up and down. So growth rate, decay rate, that's per day, decay rate, and half-life, doubling time, when virus becomes double, like in about 7 days, and half-life, after that, when it starts to decay in about 8 days, it has half-life. And during its entire infectious period, about 78% of cells are lost. So these all numbers are just means number. So what? So we might say so within has, but when they design therapies, like any antiretroviral therapy, these numbers are extremely important. How it grows, when they have to treat, or how much efficacy they need to control, these numbers are very important. So idea is, at least it's in ferrets, but we have actually found first time these numbers that might be beneficial. Okay. Okay. So after that, I'll move on to the next. That's about the within host. Now I'm going to talk about the between host transmission case study in Nepal. So these are that will be based on these two papers in JTB and scientific report. Now Nepal. So now I have to acknowledge that actually in Nepal we have established a research group in Nepal almost a year. So this is the group, and these are actually brilliant PhD students here. Actually, I'm co-supervising them, and they are working on this one. And I would like to. This one is the website we introduced, and pretty much same idea as the Washington State does this all everyday on-time prediction. From May of this year, we have been predicting actually today, what's the current today's situation with yesterday's data, today's situation, and what happens in the next 2 weeks. That's what we have been continuously updating every day, because we are also collaborating and working with the government of Nepal, and our work and everything got some media attention too, but these all are in Nepalese, so I cannot show you. You just have to believe me. So, okay, Nepal, why Nepal? So this is the world map with red all the COVID infected area, and Nepal is here. An interesting feature in Nepal, this is China, India. In between China and India, there is a Nepal. So if you want to know, Kathmandu is the capital. And if you don't know still where is Nepal or what it is, at least Mount Everest, you know. We have Mount Everest there. And one more thing, birthplace of Buddha. Okay, so that's where it is. So it's a very beautiful country. You should visit that. Actually, Dr. Castell has already visited. You can ask him. If he's, I'm hoping that he likes it. Okay. Anyway. Yeah. Okay. So then reported cases in Nepal is this. That's why this unique data gives a very interesting feature there. What is important in Nepal is this. We are bounded by 3 borders from India, and China is all mountain. And these all red dots are borders with India, where border check is done. And bigger dot and smaller dot represents the flow of people. And actually, India and Nepal has provision that we can just walk by and buy vegetables and come back. We don't even need passport, nothing. We just go, work, buy vegetables and come back. And you know that India has and because of that, and India has a very good opportunity, huge Nepalese people, almost, I should say, at least 5-6 million Nepalese people are working in India, especially in Mumbai, Delhi, and those big places. So that's whenever there is no job in Nepal, India is definitely one of the places. So, but we know that India has a huge source last year as well as this year, 2020. When there is a lockdown in India, those people have to come. And after that, after 2 weeks, 2-3 weeks after India lockdown, then surge in Nepal starts. And that's what happens here. Okay, in one time, WHO record, Nepal, because of small country, it's just a 28 million population, small country that has number 1 in the world that to get highest infection in one day, actually. In one time, Nepal has got number 1. So why it is exciting? Last year, April 20, it started. Then government started policy that time. Right away, lockdown, everything closed. And in the border, they tap border, whoever is coming, test it, if positive, and not positive, 14 days they put in isolation, then only test it and negative, then only throw. Okay, you just let them go. Tightly, so that's why see, by August last year, almost August, there is nothing in Nepal. In the US, there was already disaster. So we call this the control phase because of the policy of government policy. And then after that, relax everything, then things becomes bad, and it went up. First wave goes down, and then this year again, March, this is basically the Delta variant. This year, March, and then when there is a huge in India, then again come back. But this time, government did not stop like last time because everyone was tired, right? So this time they didn't stop, and it was late when they actually stopped, then it went huge up. So why I call this data is unique, this gives opportunity means you can actually do modeling to understand effectiveness of the control strategy, because this is like a doing experiment. Drugs and no drugs, like an animal experiment, like this part is control, and this part is no control, and this one is second variant. So you kind of gives idea of getting data. So I just showed the cases data, but we have testing data, all those data are available, okay? So let's do some of the modeling stuff. First thing is always we want to do this reproduction number R0. So that means, what is it? Same idea of reproduction. If you put one infected person during its infectious period, that is the 2-3 weeks, how many new it produced, and knowing that number, you can tell that whether it has increasing trend or decreasing trend. So if less than 1, decreasing trend, because one person even not producing other, and greater than 1, increasing trend. So that's why finding, I'm not going to tell the method, but this reproduction number, time-dependent reproduction number, actually, is very important. Greater than 1 indicates increasing trend, and less than 1 indicates decreasing trend. Importantly, because we want to do some analysis on control problem, control strategy they apply, right? So interestingly, RT is correlated with policy implementation, thereby guiding the policy makers to design effective policies. Okay, let's do this. So first of all, we just this statistical stuff. All this is about maximum likelihood based method, and there is some kind of Poisson distribution assumptions and Bayesian approach we applied. All details are here in this paper if you are interested. Actually, this is not the new method we developed, but still we have described the pattern. If you read this, you can understand the relatively easier because we're mathematicians wrote it. So that's why you might be like it. Anyway, so I'm going to show the result. So what we found is reproduction number for Nepal is right away, just looking at the reproduction number, comparing to this, you can see that during the control phase, it was really controlled. Most of the time, it is less than 1 because of control policies. And after that, it surges. But you can also compare first wave versus second wave. In the first wave, this is the actually lockdown starting time. Okay, this year's lockdown. This is last year's lockdown, no lockdown. Lockdown opens. And this one is open everywhere in the country. So that's why I have 3 major dates here. And actually, yes, clearly you see last year, when the government actually started lockdown, right from the beginning, there is no spread. Everything is from those coming from India only. They tap here. But this year, when government start, already there is a community spread. So it's already bad. Okay, so this year, that's why they could not control. And still it is not controlled. It's going on. It's so badly going on. Almost so many, my one family has got infected. Almost all my sisters, I got cousin sisters, they got it actually. So many. So, and so here, so let's model this now. Those are some idea from basic reproduction number. Again, this is very basic, nothing to do with Nepal. So in basic dynamics, how you do it, you have some certain susceptible population, and susceptible population get infected either by asymptomatic people and symptomatic people, or this in exposed phase, that's the incubation period phase. So they get infected, and once they get infected, some become symptomatic or recorded, we call it, because we want to match with the data, recorded, and some becomes not recorded, so it's just asymptomatic, and then they recover, and then actually symptomatic people die. So, and the same differential equation. This has nothing to do with Nepal. Let's put it that in the context of Nepal, because we want to compare the control. And that's how modeling is done for those students who are interested to do. You start with the simple, then how do you put in your context? So in Nepal context, when I put there, I still have that same S, E, I, R, I, N, and R, same thing. Susceptible, exposed, recorded, non-recorded, and recovered. But we want to introduce these 3 things: border, screen, and quarantine. That's the main thing. They tap in the border, screen, and quarantine, and lockdown, and detection and isolation. They clearly detect and isolate people. So that's what three control strategies they use, and this is what it is. This then, because they border, screen, and quarantine, we generate the new people, new group. That's the quarantine people. When they come from the border, they screen right there. And they quarantine, on only after 14 days, they test. If positive, they become recorded, and if only negative, then they go there. And but there are always, this is a developing country, Nepal, nothing is perfect. There is some leakage always there. So we have introduced all those things. That's the quarantine. And lockdown means, what's the objective of lockdown? You remove the contact between susceptible and infected population. And that's why you have here, you have a time-dependent data. And detection and isolation, you tap it, if you detect, you immediately record it. And if you increase this rate theta, that means you are increasing the detection data. And that time, how many people you want to test. Okay, that's what we introduced like that. Now, we feed this model to our whole data set, and we are so excited. It's very difficult to actually fit this kind of model. But we found, of course, this is the same idea, okay, differential equation. Each of them, we have 6 plus minus, same idea. And now, this is the fitting. Fitting is so exciting. It's a long data from April to almost July. We did until July for this work. And actually, this is control phase, and first wave, and again, second wave. So all tapped properly. And this is actually cumulative. Cumulative is almost perfect. And this one is actually everything. So this is the data fitting. That at least tells you that our model does a very good job to describe the data in Nepal. Okay. So then, yes.
So maybe you're going there, but So now that so you're essentially saying the mechanisms that I have in the model are able to follow the data, but do you have enough information to then say, if I change the conditions in the system, if I do a lockdown or if I have a wave or something, do you have a way to then take that model and manipulate it?
Yeah.
Or it's too uncertain, depends on how
It is, because of this fact, it is more certain that we can do it. Because all those things we say has here, right? Suppose if I want to relax the lockdown, then this parameter embedded here will slowly increase.
But you know how to tie it to the actual environment. Like, I know that if you had the data posteriori, you would be able to follow it through that. But do you have a sense on how
You mean how
would
much?
you-
How
yeah,
much
let's
difference?
say if we do this action or if something happens, I know that this term will change by this much, and then I can just see what would happen. Or you
Exactly.
don't have
Yes.
a clue.
Yes, we have here. We have here. Like for example, this basic first starting point is we can do whatever model simulate in any ways, right? But the idea is how much you should take and what is the basic model. And we have to take the realistic parameter. That's one of the painful stuff, right? Whether people believe. And that's why to get the realistic parameter, we have this good fit and not, and we tested this. We did actually identifiability test also for this model. That means parameters are uniquely identified. So then that means not, if I just change this one and this one randomly, we cannot fit this. It's very, very difficult to fit. So because this fit came, which is reasonably good fit, and it came because for those parameters, and at least to that degree, we have actually we have confidence that our parameters are reasonably good, and that's a basic parameter. Now, if I change from there, if I have relaxed 20% increase in one, that means lockdown decrease by 20% or increase by 20%. How much? And then we can run the simulate and we can say how much impact it's going to get. That's what I'm going to do next. Yeah. So from there, what is knowledge from the past? First thing is same thing, like you said. Now we want you to do. We found this because this one is really cool. I was so proud of Nepal during that time, July. In US, we are, oh my God, July 4th gone and everything. We were so scared. Everything is always increasing. Second in the world, Brazil, India, and US or something like that. But Nepal is controlled, well controlled. No one is dying. Almost maybe 100 people or something like that. Nothing. So I was so proud of Nepalese government that time. So then that gives us whatever policy they applied, how much that was effective. So that at least we can compute here, like you mentioned, how then we relax, we simulate, we again start our model simulation from here, but not do all those control strategies. So then we did that one. So when we did that, so how much effect among them, how much effective means it? This one is realistic. If the government had not done that, this should have been expected. And if we have not done any one of those, we would have gotten this. So that means
that's the one. So sorry, the one on the right.
Yeah, one on the right is, this one is not doing anything because we are free, right? Not doing anything. One on the right is not doing one at a time.
But you have a different scale on the y-axis, right? That's why the black solid line.
Total COVID-19 cases per day. Oh yeah, of course, because this is not doing anything. It goes very high. But this is not doing only one thing. You still have others.
Yeah, no, I was just getting confused on the black solid line, but you know, it's the y-axis is different.
Only this is same. This one is same. Oh. Yeah, because we don't have this. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. We just have 4 without lockdown, without isolation, without quarantine, with all control measures. This one, yeah, something is not.
No, it's because the y-axis you go up to 4,500, the other one you go 1,800, so it makes sense. I'm just at the beginning I just didn't see it and I was confused.
Okay. Yeah. Anyways, so roughly, we have a details is in the paper, but roughly we have the idea. This tells you, of course, as expected, lockdown is extremely effective here, but others too are not too much. But I don't want to conclude that because isolation and detection can also gives you some things. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It's a little bit confusing because this solid line is this solid line here, but this is so deep, but this is so high, but it's in 500 and 500 somewhere down sitting because of this scale. Yeah, because reason we have to do because this one without anything, but here we don't have without anything. If we had drawn this curve, then that curve would have been here. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so that gives some idea. And what other knowledge we have? Comparison first wave and second wave. Second wave we can think of like a delta variant related to delta variant because almost all of them are delta variant now in Nepal. So first wave, if you consider detection, of course that time government policy was good. Second wave, we are just this is very strange. Only 5% are detecting there. Actually, it's a really bad situation. I'm gonna tell you. I even know real news phone conversation how bad the situation is. Actually, it's actually true. That's in the context of Nepal. And transmission rate. This tells you delta variant is about 1.5 times more infectious than the last time. And of course, this is positivity in the border. Last time this time more people were already coming positive than the last time. Okay, 0.1 and 0.05. So this gives some ideas. And some I'm going to I have 5-10 minutes. So then what we did is we also did local level through this reproduction number. We also did local level because the Nepal has 7 provinces. Even though government apply, that might apply anywhere actually. Even though government apply, okay, lockdown, country-wise lockdown. So, but that might not work. In what is lockdown mean in California may not work same as in Kentucky, right? So federal level might not work. Same thing in Nepal. Lockdown, yes, but do they have when it comes to impact, do they have a same level of impact? Those 3 things. So then here, what we did is we did thorough detailed analysis. This is very simple regression analysis. It's very simple stuff, but how we did it, how reproduction number, that's tied to the policy, correlated with L, lockdown, P, testing, I, isolation, and Q, quarantine. Each of them, because we have data for that, whether they did or not, and how many they did. And we did correlation analysis, and we again did which model best described. We all have that in this paper. Oh, sorry, this is not JTB, the scientific report papers. So then what we found is actually provincial disparity is huge. And that means all places, if you apply the same level of policies from the government, it's not good. In some cases, even lockdown doesn't work. It's not effective that much. So if you do more lockdown, you might get other ways in some cases. So because of their lifestyle, especially because of 2 things in Nepal. Because of all borders are not connected to India. So only southern border. And 2 is, there are places like Kathmandu, giant, huge, everything is so chaotic. And there are very nice places, villages where there is nothing. And Pokhara, yes, Pokhara, that's where we did conference. I'll show you that slide actually. So then, yes, so there are different places, so they cannot work together. That's why this gives us, at least this study gives us idea, we should at least have high and low risk region. Okay, now let me show you healthcare vaccination model, next one. Now we want to extend and make our computation a little bit giant, big models, putting all healthcares because that was a need in May, June, or Zen need. So we talked with the governments, and that's what you need to help to understand something like that. So then we started doing what can we do and trying to post it in website every day what it is. So what we did is we divided into high risk and low risk region. So all borders, India borders and big cities, we put in the high risk and other one in the low risk. And then we started with the same idea for high risk and low risk, but we have different things here. See, this susceptible, exposed, recorded, non-recorded there, but recorded also some goes to medical, they needing medicals, hospitalization, I show you, this is ICU, and this is ventilator, okay, and recover. Same thing here also, medical, ICU, and ventilators. Then based on, we have a data, how many Nepalese people were vaccinated, and based on data, we also introduced the vaccination program implemented in Nepal. So it was something came from India at the beginning, 2 doses vaccination, Varicella vaccine there, actually at time. Something came in India, some people got first dose. Before they have to get the second dose, India has a huge source, India blocked it. We don't have vaccine. Many people didn't get second dose. Now later, after 2-3 months, there were no vaccine. And then again, they got something from China. Now actually Biden administration also helping with their vaccination. We implemented that. Then we want to pray. Again, we fitted this new model. So that's why I was so excited. This is so good, excellent, at least calibration or fitting is so good. Now we have a data. This is for the whole Nepal reported cases. This is high risk region reported case, low risk region reported case, and dotted is data, solid line is model always. And this is actually, this is medical care, how many needs hospital. This was governments actually available for COVID passing in 2020, but later the government added and they make more available in now. So this is allocated. And so this one is COVID-19 patient in ICU, and this one is in ventilator. So ventilator was a little bit worse, but in most of the times, at least medical was not a too much problem. Okay, this is in a whole Nepal. But if you go to local level, there are so many villages that maybe people are just dying. That's always those kind of things. But overall, we were not overwhelmed with the facilities during this pandemic. Now, we want to predict this, okay? So first thing is seroprevalence. That was also, we were very excited. So if you don't know, why do seroprevalence study is this? One of the main problem with this COVID-19 is you don't know who are infected. There are many people infected, but until they test, you don't know they are infected or not, and they get recovered. But if you test their antibodies, you find it. So that's why, because of how many people are detected, usually go to symptoms, that's one of the biggest problem. And that's how people in different places, including Nepal, US also, Canada, people are doing that. They do random seroprevalence study. Now select randomly people, then in how many they find antibodies, okay? So then we found this is the actually data. They did seroprevalence in August. Our match very well. And then we predict what's going to be in September, October, November, December, how much seroprevalence is going to be. So that tells us if Delta variant might be different, based on our reproduction number, roughly if it is 70–80% people should be vaccinated or have a immunity to get herd immunity, roughly they will get in October, but everything remains same. Again, there is always uncertainty, okay? This kind of study is important. So very interestingly, 95% of people are only. Yeah. Question? Yeah. So this is very useful information for policymakers. Then now I'm almost done with the time, so I don't want to talk too much. But the same thing I did. What we did is, then if we have a different level of government in the process of relaxing the lockdown, so from yesterday only schools are open. I think they open everything, but school colleges were not open yet. So then what we did, if we open 50%, 70%, this is what we can do. As a mathematician, that's the best we can do. So then we have a different level of curves. All these are the cases, ICU, hospitalization, and this is ventilator. Okay. Now we also did, let's say, lockdown level.
Yeah. The one that we just have here. In your vaccinated ones, do you have a negative term? I mean, that after 6 months or 8 months, you might lose protection, and then.
Okay, you're
incorporated in this.
Yeah, we haven't. Yes, honestly, that's losing immunity has not been incorporated in this model, but we also predict until January. So we expect that that's not going to have an effect. But if we do longer, yes, you're right. So then we have to consider. But here, losing immunity hasn't been considered. Once vaccinated, recovered, and they are actually immune, at least during this study. That's our study. There is that kind of uncertainty there. Yeah. But vaccinated people are also infected actually in Nepal. I know many people actually. That's also another thing. And what we did here is actually a level of lockdown, how much you can lose. And this one is if you 80%, government make a policy that 80% if you vaccinate by August 1, 80% by September 1, 80% by October 1, 80% by January, how much is going to be number of daily cases. So that kinds of this heat map helps them policymakers. Oh, I can relax a little bit, but I have to have a vaccination increase. So where there should be that helps, same thing reported cases, same thing medical care, ICU, and also ventilator, and also death based on lockdown and vaccination level, what you expect. In conclusion, thank you for listening so long. Dynamical system model can accurately explain both within host infection rates at least and between host transmission data well. And of course, within host model are useful actually for designing antiviral therapies. It's still not there, but people are using ferrets animal model to do testing the different drugs. Now, actually, between host models are also of course extremely beneficial for healthcare management, vaccination policies. And I told a lot of beautiful things about Nepal. If you are interested, there will be the third conference in Pokhara, Nepal. That's what Dr. Castell is saying, 25 to 28, 2023. You can make a plan to go there. If you have any questions, thank you for listening.
Well, thank you for an interesting talk. We now open it up for questions.
Yeah.
Did your model consider like how long the government controls were put into place as far as like, you know, people like obeying them, people being okay, and then after a while people start to relax? That kind of like social willingness to comply with those government controls.
Okay, so that's a very good question. Those things are relatively easier in Nepal because that's forcefully they do. It's not like here, right? So, and last time that's why it was successful. So see, control for so many 6 months being controlled is amazing because they stop it. That's it. Everywhere they stop it. Not only that, if they find somebody 6 feet long, they make us 6 feet long, some kind of clip with like a rod. And if somebody is walking that, they push it that and put it in the van. They did that history. So those kind of things are possible there. So that's why it is. That's what, did I answer your question? Something like that? Those kind of things are possible. So implementation is relatively easy. So that's okay because government, nobody likes it. Answer to your question. Of course, people socially, everyone is frustrated, of course, that thing, but there is a compulsion they can make it. So that's what successful. But now already people are tired and even it's relaxed and it's becoming a little bit loose. But still, if government implements some policy, okay, from tomorrow it's a lockdown, that happens there actually. So, yeah.
So I have a question. I think you did this, but I'm not sure how exactly. How do you incorporate the partial lockdown? Like, so again, lockdown is not 100%. Sometimes it's like schools are open, or maybe restaurants and everything are open till 9 p.m.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? I thought we had like 50% lockdown.
Yeah, that's a very excellent questions. And correctly from the policy level, no, we cannot, especially as a mathematicians, what can we do? We just know the number. So that's why we just randomly check, okay, 50%, that one. But what we thought is, at least tying to government, when they locked down, they did not lock, they know what they open. Like if you can think of related to time-wise sometimes. What they did last time is, okay, for the grocery from 7 to 10, you can go and buy grocery vegetables. And people all go there and buy whatever they need, come back. So that time you can have, okay, this much percentage of the whole day, at least that can be done. And other things, like I said, college, schools, and those things were not open until yesterday, but maybe from next week they are going to open. And how much portion is there, that we can try. So only that's the best we could do. Yeah.
Okay. So the question was, if you play around with these numbers, is there an optimal So again, right, the problem with a complete lockdown is you can't keep it on for long. People gonna go crazy. So is there an optimal number you can say like, oh, I want a 25% lockdown, but along with that, if I do regular testing and all the other measures, then I might be fine. But it's like, no,
Yeah.
there's nothing you can do. You have to go to 75% or almost 90% lockdown.
We have that.
Okay.
We have that. I didn't show that. That is exactly what you said in that paper. What we did is, at that time, there is nothing, vaccination, nothing. But what we did is lockdown level versus testing and isolation. And we drew that basic reproduction number curve. And that tells you to lie less than 1, what should their level be.
Right.
And what we found is if you really do good 60-70% testing and detection mechanism, you just need 10-15% lockdown. Maybe you don't even not that much. So that we have that answer. Yeah.
So following up on what Parag said, thinking about one of your models might be easier to ask a question. Have you thought or have you seen anyone
Is still this model?
any of the models would be fine.
Okay.
None of the equations, because that's where it would be easier to
Okay.
get approximation. So you're having an ODE and you
Yes.
have a special component, which at the end of the day translates into that the lockdown might be partial because you might have it either 4 times or you have it on specific regions. So your terms are mass action for the most part.
Yeah.
When you have two
Yeah.
agents interacting and the interaction is mass action. But sometimes when you translate the spatial aspects into the ODE,
Yes.
you would do it with, for example, an exponent that has to capture that you may have an effect that is not purely mass action because you have this heterogeneity. No?
Mm-hmm.
So have you looked into that, and for example, how sensitive would it be in some of your findings as soon as you add in some of the terms that you know that might be sensitive to these cases to say, well, if I add an exponent and I just move away from the unit that you have now in the mass action to 0.9 on the exponent, it changes completely or not, or if it's like, no, it's robust enough, that doesn't really matter. So have you seen any of that or
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Spatial thing is always there, and that's very important. So that creates a lot of uncertainty, especially in Nepal. So every spatial component is almost so variation. Some people are really in a city, and some are in a border, and some are in a really remote place where you have nothing. Yes, that's very important. We haven't included any of those things, but what just this, like I mentioned, this one tells you little bit of spatial. Yeah, this one little bit of spatial. Like in each province, this is different. Here we have some spatial variation, like provincial disparity kind of thing. And based on this, we already did high risk and low risk 2 spatial and something like that. And we are doing now putting the network, or at least traffic network of from one province to all of them, or all of them to all of them. We are working on that one. Other than that, we haven't done like detailed, you mentioned real spatial components. So that's we haven't done yet. Yeah. But I agree that that's always a factor, actually. That's always important. Yeah.
Well, I have a question. What happens if you were supposed to take out, instead of looking at the whole Nepal, so you have different provinces, so you're supposed to take out different provinces and then look at having lockdown in lots of different places, how would that affect the dynamics? I know you say other neighboring countries were affecting what was going on, so if you just look at different provinces lockdown, like in some of those places where you said it wasn't really helping, maybe,
Yeah.
like maybe other mitigations, if you look at things like that.
Oh, that's a good point. So we were just considering whatever the government has considered here. So in many cases, maybe you don't even need lockdown, but still you might get that kind of controls, right? So we haven't done that. A little bit high and low. We just developed the model and it's process of feeding. This, by the way, this one hasn't published yet. So we are in the process of submission. This one high and low 2 categories thing. But there we might be able to do, like you mentioned, local level, if we do in one places or different strategy in 2 places, that one. But eventually we have to do that in each province, considering ODE is always simple and easy rather than putting PD and special distribution. And so in this case, that's definitely a good point. We have in mind, but we haven't exactly done, other than a little bit of the statistical stuff, yeah.
Okay, and a follow-up to the chart you have here. So is it based on what you know about this province? You said, well, from your model, you could predict those people, well, those regions where people were not obeying the lockdown significantly. So looking at what you see here from the model, does it look like what you would expect based on the environment? And
Oh, yeah. So that we have tried some of, that's what we expected. Yes, in some cases during lockdown is even higher that time because the flow is coming from India. And that's why even if you do local lockdown, but total these cases, the data is just the numbers, right? Yes, those we have tried little bit to connect that, but many of things make sense. And more, we get more reproduction number, also more cases when there are cities and those kind of places. Yes, we have that, but not perfectly, of course, yeah.
One question, speak out again.
Yes, thank you very much.
We're gonna go take the speaker over in Eureka and I will tell you all about